The Mars Rover was developed over an approximately 15-year span at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, also known as RPI, beginning in 1967. It was developed in response to a challenge from NASA to develop an autonomous vehicle to operate on the planet Mars. Over the entire run of this project, support came from NASA, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and from RPI itself. RPI was only working on part of the problem. Several other schools were also engaged in developing aspects of a rover that could be used on the planet Mars. Specifically, the RPI vehicle team was working on vehicle structure, deployment, suspension, and an autonomous navigation system. This project was undertaken as an educational enterprise, using students, both undergraduate and graduate, to do the bulk of the work. The initial phase of the project targeted the physical aspects of the rover and resulted in construction of a vehicle that could be folded for transport and deployed upon arrival to Mars. This vehicle also included aspects of a suspension system for a vehicle operating on Mars. The tires were based on the design of the tires on the lunar rover. They are both supported by springs and are designed to mimic a pneumatic tire in both cushioning and lateral stability and cornering. The rover is actually a second-generation vehicle, built as a 3/4 scale model of the intended vehicle. Testing for this vehicle began in 1974, although further refinements to the design were made after that point. This development was undertaken aiming for a 1984 visit to Mars. The actual Mars rover, Sojourner, landed on Mars on July 4, 1997. Once the physical aspects of the vehicle were well in hand, development concentrated on an autonomous navigation system for the rover. This was necessary because the light travel time to Mars is between 4.5 and 20 minutes. Therefore, by the time an image showing an obstacle can be sent to Earth, and a controller sends commands to avoid that obstacle, between 9 and 40 minutes have elapsed. Just imagine driving your car at only 3 miles per hour, but only being able to touch the controls every 10 minutes. Because of this, NASA needed a vehicle that could sense danger in upcoming paths and make its own decisions about where to travel. Earth controllers would still set the final destination, but the rover would be free to vary its path of travel for safety along the way. In the case of the RPI rover, developing a truly autonomous vehicle was beyond the scope of their project. The navigation computer was off-board and communicated with the rover by radio because computers were too large at that time to fit on the vehicle. The rover itself held 3 car batteries for power, the motors and navigational sensors, control and communication interfaces for all onboard systems, and a radio transceiver. The rover is most significant historically for its navigational sensor system. This system, developed in the capital region, formed the basis of the system that was used on the actual rover that went to Mars. The early version of this used a single laser and a single detector to gather information about the upcoming terrain. Later, a multiple laser, multiple detector system was developed to improve the decision-making capabilities of the system. The single laser, single detector system is mounted on the mast at the front of the vehicle. Laser pulses are sent up the mast to the mirror at the top, which deflects them to the ground approximately 1.75 meters in front of the vehicle. This was directly in the cone of vision of the sensor. The laser could be moved back and forth across the mirror to provide a small scanning area, and the entire mast could be rotated up to 84 degrees left or right for a complete picture of any hazards in the area. Simply put, the sensor had a limited area of vision. If the laser pulse fell inside the area where the sensor would pick it up, the path was safe. If the laser pulse fell outside that area, so the sensor detects nothing, there is danger in the path ahead. These dangers could take many forms: rocks, craters, or steep slopes up or down. By scanning the area to the left and right, the system would then know which direction offered the safest way of proceeding in case an obstacle was detected in its path. The multiple laser, multiple detector system worked essentially the same, except it allowed more accurate measurement of obstacles and better classification of hazards. By the mid-1980s, funding was withdrawn from the RPI project because of the need to shift resources to the Space Shuttle program. Although the RPI project was scrapped before it could be ready for a 1984 launch, the design was instrumental in the development of the Sojourner rover, which landed on Mars in 1997.